Good day, everyone. Richard Cowperthwaite for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us. And we're with St. Albans Mayor Tim Smith. Morning, Mr. Mayor.
How are you?
I should note, fun, taping this show on Wednesday, February 2nd. Always nice to wake up to that. My good friend, the south wind. It gives us warmer temps, but as I think I've said before, I hate the winter south wind. I mean, it gives us, again, last night was probably the warmest night we've had in like a month or so. Anyway, and it sounds like some snow. It sounds like we might actually get our first legit snowstorm.
I think they're all in agreement, 6 to 12.
Sounds like it, yeah. But again, we're taping this show on Wednesday morning, February 2nd. Tim, when I last saw you, I think I was struggling with we were trying to think of the number of, the number of the fewer Vermonters who were employed than before the pandemic. I was struggling with that number, 24,000. I think that's the number I've come across. Does that sound right, or does that sound as in fewer Vermonters working now than before the pandemic? Right. Is that what I'm thinking of?
I actually came across, just this week, I saw an email that said 30,000.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So
I don't know where that data comes from.
Geez, because I think I've seen something fairly close to that.
Yeah,
so that many fewer Vermonters working now than before the pandemic hit just about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That's a staggering figure. Tell you about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is the retiring baby boomers, for sure. I think a lot of it is people doing career change, or individuals have chosen to stay home with the family. Combination of a lot of things, but
wow.
Everyone makes their own decisions. But the big picture, the 30,000 foot level, is that the economy is hurting, just trying to find enough people to fill the vacancies.
Yeah, and tell you about that. You, with your day job of Franklin County Industrial Development Corporation, are as aware of that as anybody out there.
But, we're workforce development, or just workforce, if you will, is the number one topic. And I don't want to say I told you so, but I mean, we've been talking about this for 10 years, and I don't think anyone envisioned that we would get to the point we are now. Yeah. But at the same time, we just don't have people applying for jobs.
Wow. And no particularly good news in sight. I mean, things continuing to get worse, or they stabilized a bit here, or
I think they have stabilized for sure. Yeah. I think if there is good news, it comes in small pieces. One is that I think businesses are looking to build those relationships with the high schools, looking to attract those graduating seniors who have chosen not to go on to college.
Yeah.
We have said for years, we being FCIDC, the Workforce Investment Board, and others, that not everyone is built for college, and that there's that we need to do a better job of career education, opportunity education, if you will.
Yeah.
And the high school, at this point, the Bells Ferry Academy is realizes that, and they're doing a lot of things to sort of interact with the businesses and see how they can work with them. I know that
the governor's certainly getting in on this. I caught some of his media briefing yesterday, Tuesday, Feb 1, talking more CTE, really trying to giving a lot of attention to trying to get more interest in the trades.
And we're having a conversation with the building trades about potential program for them. We are, I know that for a fact that Ben and Jerry's is going into BFA to do a presentation today for some of those kids.
Wow.
About what they're looking for and what the opportunities are.
And again, including presumably hiring kids who graduate from high school as soon as they graduate.
Exactly. Wow. And there's a lot of friends of mine that have entered those ranks coming out of high school, and they did, and now have key management positions within those manufacturers.
Wow.
And have made a nice living out of it without a college education, if you will.
Typically BFA, I mean, what percentage of the graduating seniors at BFA are going on to some form of college? I mean, a majority certainly, or
I
what
would
that
say
is?
there is a majority that gets accepted into college.
Yeah,
But whether they end up going and graduating after 4 years,
Right.
I think you're below 50%.
it's all right. Yeah,
So I think, the example I always use is, I think a while back, BFA touted 79% got accepted to college.
really.
And just my rough estimate is, when they get their tuition bill, the 79% comes 70%.
Yeah,
You go for your first semester, your 70% becomes 62%.
interesting.
And then, before the 4 years are up, your 62% is, down around 50%.
Really interesting.
So you always have those, and if let's just say the graduating class is 200 kids,
Yeah,
within 2 or 3 years, you've got 100 individuals that are back in town,
yeah,
trying to figure out what they want to do and
yeah.
find a job.
Huh.
So that's 100 kids every
Wow.
year,
Wow.
if you will. So I think I know BFA is, and the COVID hasn't made it easy, but as we move forward, I know they have positioned themselves with a career center, and that they will continue to work with employers, not just manufacturing, the hospital, mental health, utilities, construction. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities out there.
Boy, it sure sounds like it. So the annual city meeting, March town meeting day, not too far away. Boy, Tuesday, March 1st. So it looks like no contests in the city. We'll have one change on the city council with Ward 2 Councilor Jim Pelkey not running for re-election, and I guess Jamie Pinkham, candidate for Ward 2.
And Newell Decker.
Oh, sorry, Newell Decker. Take it. You just told me that. So one contest in the city.
Contest.
Okay. No one went after your job, huh?
No one wanted.
No one went after your high-paying job?
Yeah, no one. They weren't lining up.
Interesting.
Even though some people had threatened they would, but
Is that right?
didn't happen.
Interesting. Did anyone file for city clerk treasurer?
No one filed for city
No one
clerk.
filed. And of course, a key ballot item for city residents to give the council authority to appoint a city clerk treasurer as opposed to electing a city clerk treasurer who would have to be from the city.
And that's just the first step. It has to go to Montpelier
Right.
for charter change approval.
Yeah.
And then we would that format would go away as of July 1. So we still have to, because no one's running, we still have to appoint
Yeah.
someone for the 3 months, and then we would appoint someone permanently as of July 1.
Right. So current city clerk treasurer Curry Galloway's term is up, I guess, March 1st, basically.
Yes, and she,
So the council would appoint someone till July 1, when hopefully you'll have the authority to,
exactly.
with the new word. Interesting. So that's probably not real surprising that nobody filed, given the likely or
Yeah, I
possible
mean,
change.
you're rolling the
I'd
dice for
rather-
a 3-month job. You're probably not going to leave a job for not knowing what the future holds.
Right. And back to the council, Tim Hawkins running for re-election in Ward 1 with nobody opposing
No
him.
one opposed, no.
So one contest, just like last year when there was one city council contest, we have another one this year.
Right.
Interesting. We talked some, and so no big items on the city ballot like last year. I mean, nothing big like the community swimming pool.
No, I mean, there's some TIF stuff looking to do some work on Federal Street, but that's when compared to past TIF notices, this is minor in the scheme of things. But we talked about the TIF. We're excited. Everything has lined up on the Fonda site. We have we've transferred property to contracting to construct a building for the rail dispatch center.
Right.
So, it'll be great to see some activity in the Fonda site.
And again, you got some outside money to do the remedial work there.
Got quite a bit of outside money for sure between earmarks and Northern Borders Regional Commission and the state's brownfield program, which came down through the legislature. So,
and that work should be underway this summer, this year.
Well, there's some activity going on down there.
Oh, really?
It's a lot of people wouldn't notice it because it sits all the way in the back, but,
Um,
yeah, we're moving forward.
And there's another potential site down there for somebody, well, of course, the city made the proposal. As we go back to the USCIS, U.S. Customs and Immigration Services, there's room there for a facility if that happens to
Right.
come to pass.
I think if that were to happen, yes, that would be where it would be located as far as the city's proposal.
Yeah.
If it doesn't happen, then I think we've designed the parcel for 2 other buildings that could potentially go in there.
Huh.
One 20,000 and one 40,000, I think.
Huh. And nothing new. I ask you pretty much every time
You know.
we see here. Nothing new on the on that facility, the immigration
No,
facility.
I just sent an email off end of last week to the Welch, Leahy, and Sanders camps to see if they've heard anything, and the response they got back was there has been no significant movement in the process.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
so that was just this week. You know, that organization is pretty well independent. They set their own timeline, and so even someone like Leahy doesn't get a whole lot of movement when they engage them for discussion.
Right.
So,
Interesting. Any more news on the ARPA money the city has? That's, of course, the American Rescue Plan
Yeah,
Act
I mean,
money.
Other than the fact that they pulled all the restrictions, I guess the money is a lot more flexible uses to it. You know, we're sort of I'm not saying holding on, but we're just we have till 2025 to spend it. So.
Yeah.
We're not quick to jump on anything. We're sort of evaluating where the needs are. We have done a few things with the funding. We did an assessment of a apartment complex, a brownfield assessment down on Maple Street to see what needs to be done for that to be sold and change hands. We've done that little bit of a pilot project relative to homeowners getting a grant and a loan to fix up their homes.
Right.
I don't know if there's been any takers on that. That we know that has to be more. There needs to be more outreach on that, more education for homeowners and there's another smaller use I think we use for the ARPA dollars, but nothing significant by any means.
Do you think you'll end up spending? The city has over $1 million in potential ARPA money. Is that, you know, what the figure?
Well, I thought we were. I thought we were up around 1.4.
Okay, so there's a lot of money there.
Yeah, a lot of money.
And it's funny. Just on radio news this morning, I heard the new national debt, or a national debt number that I hadn't heard for a while. I don't know if you heard that, but boy, what a staggering! How about 30 trillion?
Yeah, 30 came to mind when you mentioned that.
Right, 30 trillion, and incredibly tripled in 13 years. It was just about 9 trillion at the time of the Great Recession, 2008, 2009. But that's staggering, and I'm sure it's not smart enough to tell you what that means, but it sure doesn't sound good. I suspect it's not going to be a problem for myself in my lifetime, but not so sure about my kid or your kids, but what a staggering figure.
And I don't, I
so
totally
have the
agree
feds
with you.
been too? Do you think they went a little crazy with the pandemic? I mean,
Well, I don't think you can blame either party. Well, take that back. You can blame both parties, right? I mean, when you had the recession and then Trump's activities, I mean, there's
they're plenty of folks.
Everyone in Washington is responsible for it. I mean, that's and I don't know where it's headed. I don't think I would dare say it's not a good place, wherever that is.
Yeah.
You know, it's very similar to the teachers. Teacher and state employee pension fund.
Boy, that sounds like a huge, right, which gets some attention, but...
yeah, it's, right now, the number I heard was for every man, woman, and child, we would all be having to pay in $4,900 to in Vermont to make it balanced.
In Vermont.
Yeah.
And the figure, just to flash back to the national debt, of course, I heard the figure for every man,
Yeah.
woman, and child, about $90,000. I'm sure
so-
everybody out there can throw in $90,000 and get that issue settled.
Throw in 90 and another 5 for the pension fund.
Wow.
So set aside 100,000 if you have it, and
Wow.
send it to the respective parties.
I guess there's been a committee looking at the pension fund, and I hear some reports on that, but what I'm hearing is whatever plan there is being proposed, and maybe there's more than one, that would deal with part of the issue but wouldn't deal with the future. It's not changing things for, I mean, don't you have
It addresses things in the short run, but
Right.
definitely not in the long run.
right,
I heard they were putting $200 million in relative to
right.
ARPA funds and all that.
And of course, politicians love to be part of something, giving less benefits and stuff than, people
Yeah.
had in the past.
And-
They'd love to be part of that.
And I don't think you'll ever satisfy the NEA.
Yeah. Yeah,
So it'll be interesting to see where all that goes.
boy. Again, the pandemic seems to be hanging. I guess things are looking a little better on case numbers, although they still seem to go up and down quite a bit. But then in terms of impact on the city, any change in what's going on with the city with that?
No, it's pretty much status quo.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have come to accept it. City Hall's open. There
Yeah.
are some guidelines that people need to follow. There's still activities that, rec continues to hold their programs. I went to a BFA basketball game the other night.
Yeah.
Outside of the mask, it looked like a normal basketball event.
People were wearing masks,
People were wearing a mask. at the
have
game.
to or were told to.
Yeah, both participants
Okay.
and spectators.
Boy, is that
both.
right? Boy, the players too, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, it's a little
Well, that
tough.
sounds like a bit of a drag, huh?
Yeah. So,
But I guess better, at least it's happening.
yeah, I'll be curious to see where we are in late April, early May.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to get to this, but the Maple Festival Committee is moving forward. I'll be curious to see how that, what the structure of that is moving forward. I know that.
But it is on in whatever form they come up with.
Yep.
Last weekend in April, I assume.
Yes. So I know that they're, like on the talent show, there's no audience. They'll do a talent
Really?
show.
Wow.
They did away with the, in the short term anyway, they did away with the antique show. So it's, they've adapted a little bit, and I think those adaptations are more along the short run than they are the long run.
Yeah. I guess St. Albans Winter Festival, Carnival, I get that is on. I've seen a few references to that, including fireworks, that Hardak, I guess, is part of that.
Yeah, Hardak.
Feb 13 or have I got Feb 19? Geez, I'm spacing out on the date, but whatever. Later this month.
Is it 11/12 or
It's,
18/19?
I think maybe 18 or whatever, but feel check that. But later this month anyway.
Yeah, that will be on as well.
Yeah.
And Hardak's been open for skiing and sliding.
Yeah.
And, this storm coming up will only help the situation.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get a hit of natural snow.
Yeah.
Burlington right now is at about 31 inches, definitely below average by probably a foot or so. So this storm might bring kind of our snowfall up to about average for this time of year.
Yeah, the stat that we're watching as a family, we saw it on the news, was, and this was prior to the last 10 days, but at that time there was 10 sub-zero days or
Yeah.
recordings.
Yeah.
Just based on last week. So I think 16's the average.
Yep, 16. I think we're probably right around 16.
Yeah, I think 16, 17 now.
Yeah.
The max in 1 year was 40.
No, yeah, 1960, a few years
Yeah.
before I shut up, 69, 70. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought those. So my youngest is following that to see how we
that
do
right?
against the.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the effects of it are, but when you hear that the tick population is higher during those the winters that are not so severe.
Yeah.
So there may be some good outcomings if we continue on.
Yeah, but I think the moose population might be happy about this.
Yeah.
For the moose population, I think in the northern states in general, has just taken a huge
Yeah, it's amazing what
beating, and you hear ticks being the big issue with that. So, yeah, some colder weather hopefully will do some good.
Yeah.
And January was, January brought me back to some of my earlier winters. January was a pretty solid winter month
Yeah.
around here.
outside of the snowfall, but
Yeah,
and I think the lack of snowfall helps to address that tick issue too. They don't have that
yeah.
buffer, if you will.
In terms of city budget, I assume you're probably in decent shape with what you usually spend on plowing and stuff at this
Yeah,
this
for
point?
sure. Well, I say for sure. You know, the nagging thing about the winter, this past winter, is
Yeah.
those 1-inch snowstorms that we get.
Can be, you got to deal with them.
You still have to deal like it
Yeah.
as if it was a 5-inch or 6-inch
Yeah.
storm. So you're still you still have that same time that's invested, even though you look around, it doesn't look
Yeah.
like we have much.
Yeah,
But that same time is invested.
yeah.
Sometimes even more salt is invested.
Yeah.
So I don't know where we stand. I haven't spoken to Marty Manahan about that, but my guess is we're probably in line with a normal expenditure.
Yeah. Back to Hardak, Tim, I always ask you about the community swimming pool. Is that pretty much buttoned down? Is there anything?
The last I knew, they were doing some internal work on the
Yeah.
on the piping for the filtration system,
Um,
but that was a while back. I got to believe that's been done.
yeah,
Yeah, so they're waiting for the weather to break, and they'll jump on it. But we're still, all indications that I have is June 1st will be the day that it opens.
really?
Yep.
Wow. So no significant problems. That's gone along pretty well.
Yeah, along very well.
Interesting. The water storage tank issue, I forget the status on that.
Yeah, that's slated for construction this summer as well.
Yeah,
We actually we were on a call a couple weeks ago. So the Aldous Hill property backs up to that property that the city owns,
yeah,
and they need the city needs a easement from Aldous Hill to mainly for construction, so they can go on the property, and then also for maintenance over time. So that a lot of Aldous Hill is in the land trust with the Housing Conservation Board.
yeah.
So the call was basically to work through some details on an easement and get the approval of the Housing Conservation Board, which we did. We're just waiting for the final document to sign. So I think that's the last step. They had to purchase a little land as well from a neighbor. So I think that's the last step, and they'll move forward come spring.
Yeah. What percentage, I guess it changes, boy. It's nice to see, I think, a little, of course, there's ice now, but boy, at times last summer, just the low level of the Fairfax Reservoir was a little scary. Typically, how much of the city's water comes from the reservoir and the lake, or does that just change?
That's a good question, Rich.
Yeah.
I'm of the belief that I think all the water comes from the lake, and the Fairfax is is where the duplication comes in if something goes wrong.
Oh, is that right?
So they can turn that on. I'm quite sure that's the case. That's a good question. I'll have to follow up. But I think that is a situation that we pull
Interesting.
everything from the lake to begin with,
Yeah,
and Fairfax is the
kind of a backup, but nice to have that luxury, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think the city is in, when you look at other communities, we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah. On the wastewater front, of course, I did the big, what was that, a $19 million upgrade of the wastewater plant? And I know the state was pressing municipalities who had wastewater plants to reduce the amount of phosphorus.
Right.
Was that done in the city? Was that something
That was part of that. We did reduce
of that.
phosphorus a little bit.
Yeah.
The one that I'd like to see us making an effort towards, I think there's some dollars out there, and that is when you have the high level of stormwater runoff and you have the
Right.
overflow conditions.
right?
We've talked about it, about having a containment system where if it does overflow, and we absorb it in a holding pond, if you will,
Yeah.
and then treat it after that. So I think that's something that would be key for us moving forward. And as I said, I think there's some dollars out there that can assist with that.
Yeah. Well, I'm hearing, seeing some reappraisal stories, not just St. Albans, but just in general, and that's enough to strike fear, I think, in some homeowners. It seems like the trend in a few reappraisals I can think of was that homeowners typically took the hit and businesses fared better. But is St. Albans City, are we talking maybe a looming reappraisal at some point, or not clear, or not the case?
I believe we're at 84.9%.
Of the common level, what is it, CLA or?
Yeah, CLA, common level of appraisal. And when you get to 80, you need to do a reappraisal.
Yeah, so nothing looming too close, or?
Not this year, potentially next
close.
year.
Wow.
I ran into Jim Levy, who you've had on shows
Indeed.
in the past. And he shared a comment with me that I thought was interesting. Why can't you just adjust all values at 5%, across the board? It brings you back up to, maybe 89.
Right.
As opposed, and because the cost of it is, that's a separate budget issue that you have to plan for.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's so-called legal, or if it's I doubt it's that simple.
Yeah.
But it does make sense.
Interesting.
We'll be talking. It came up at our last council meeting. City manager shared some info, so it will be on the agendas over the next year, I'm sure.
Speaking of Mr. Levy, I know he was giving his typically dogged efforts on trying to get some bus service back. Has he resumed that perchance, or did you get into that subject?
No, he did. Actually, he left me a message stating that he has had conversations with his contacts at Greyhound.
Really?
And when things get straightened around, they're still planning on utilizing St. Albans as a stop, coming and going from Montreal to Boston, Boston to Montreal. And
that'd be great.
Yeah, so he's continues to maintain contact, and there's not much ridership happening between those now, and I don't even know what the situation would be getting across the border, if it's still you got to show testing. I haven't followed it lately.
Well, I guess it's a little easier for us to go north than Canadians to come south at this point, but still sounds like not a pretty tough situation.
At the same time, there's nothing to. I don't think there's your destinations are limited. I mean, I think the curfew's still in place, or did they curfew to 10? I think
so. And Canadians had that 72-hour window for a while, and that was taken back. For a while, they could come down here for up to 3 days and get back pretty easily. But so the border situation is still pretty tough.
There's no spectators at Canadian games. There's no.
Is that? I hadn't even noticed.
Yeah, no.
Wow.
So all not just Canadians, but all teams in Canada do not have spectators.
Wow.
So they've sort of taken steps backwards.
Wow. As we talk about bus service, boy, I'm just wondering if there's any ongoing efforts with getting train service, Amtrak Vermont to Montreal. It sounded like there was incremental progress, which probably just came to a screeching halt. You hearing anything about that?
I haven't heard anything since Amtrak started back up. There's always a conversation. It's 3 or 4 years out.
Yeah.
Seems like we've been hearing that since 2010. It reminds me
of when I'm in Myrtle Beach, and maybe there are many bars across the country that have the same sign: "Free beer tomorrow." Yeah. Sounds like boy, love the free beer tomorrow signs. Down to about a minute, Tim. Anything you want to quickly jump into that we haven't touched on?
No, I think from the city's perspective, our finance committee did a wonderful job maintaining the budget at a 0.4% increase. There are 2 options where people could add to that by voting in an allocation for the museum at $25,000.
Right.
And then also hiring an embedded mental health worker to work with the police.
To the PD.
Yep. So, but without those, it's a 0.4%, less than half a point. And in this day and age, with all the inflation, we're very proud of that effort, and we hope the voters support it.
Very good. And again, annual city, can people vote at this point or not?
They can request an absentee ballot.
They can request an absentee ballot. Very good. Thanks to St. Albans Mayor Tim Smith. Appreciate your time, Mayor. And thanks to producer Roger. I'm Richard Cobrathwaite. See you next time on Northwest Access TV. See ya.